للرجال نصيب مما ترك الوالدان والأقربون وللنساء نصيب مما ترك الوالدان والأقربون مما قل منه أو كثر نصيبا مفروضا.
In this lesson, we will study Al-Munaasakhaat, consecutive death. Legal terminology. Al-Munaasakhaat refers to a situation where a person dies, and before the property of the deceased person is divided amongst the legitimate heirs, one or more of the heirs die. There are three scenarios in Al-Munaasakhaat. The first scenario, the heirs of the new or the last deceased person are the same heir of the first deceased person, and the amount of entitlement had not been changed. For example, a man died and left behind 10 sons from the same wife, and before the wealth is divided, 8 of his sons died consecutively. Each son left his brothers only. The wealth was 24,000 dinar. In this scenario, we divide the wealth to the remaining people equally, because the wealth had been transferred from brother to brother to brother, so the remaining sons are from the same sons of the 10 people. So they take the wealth equally. Second scenario, every new deceased person has a new members of heirs inheriting him and her only. For example, a woman died in a car accident and left behind 4 sons. After her in minutes, 3 of her sons died consecutively. The first son left behind 2 sons, the second son left behind 3 sons, and the third son left behind 4 sons. She left legacy of 24,000 dinar. In this second scenario, we will divide the wealth to the original inheritors. So the first case we will build is for the woman who died. When she died, she left behind 4 sons. She left behind 4 sons, so the wealth is divided amongst them. So the wealth is divided equally because these sons are dividing the wealth not based on fixed portions but rather equal proportions. So the wealth is divided from 4, so each son is going to get 1 share each. After her in minutes, 3 of her sons died consecutively. So the first son died and left behind 2 sons. So his wealth is going to be transferred to his own sons. However, his brothers are not going to inherit with him because the sons are blocking his brothers. So there are 2 sons here. The wealth is divided between them, followed by the death of the second son. The second son left behind 3 sons, so his wealth is going to go to his sons. So the wealth is divided amongst them. Now here there are 3, so the masala is built upon 3. So each son is going to get 1 portion of his dad's inheritance. Followed by the third son. When he died, he left behind 4 sons. So these 4 sons are going to get the wealth of their dad. So the wealth is divided amongst them. So the wealth is divided in 4 portions. Each one is going to get 1 share. The final son, he didn't die, so he is going to inherit the wealth of his mother. She left behind 24,000 dinar. Now what we need to do, we need to compile all these cases into one. We need to combine all these cases into one. We need to look at the relationship between the numbers. So we look at the relationship between this number, the first son, and his case. What's the relationship between these two numbers? And we save a number here. We're going to save a number. We look at the relationship. If there is a 1 and 2 here like this, we're going to take the total share of the case. So we saved here 2. However, if there was a 2 here and there's a 2 here, we're going to divide the total share by 2. So it would have been 1. In the second case, we are going to look at the relationship between this number here and this number here. Here, there's no division between the two. So we save the total share of the case. And the third case, because we have 3 cases after the first case, the third case also likewise, we have a 1 here and a 4 here. So we take the total share of the case. However, if there was any other number rather than 1, if there was, for example, 6 here and there's a 4 here, we're going to look at a number that can divide them both, and we are going to divide the total share all the time. So 2 here, so total share divided by 2 equals 2. So we would have saved 2. But here we have 1 and 4. So we're going to take the total share of the case, which is 4. After saving the numbers, we're going to look at the relationship between the numbers. So here 2 and 4, they go on each other, so we cancel the 2. We don't use the 2. Now we have 3 and 4. So we're going to do 3 times 4. We're going to do 3 times 4, which is 12. We're going to take this 12 here and put it on top of the total share of the first case. Top of the total share of the first case. Now we're going to do 12 times 4. The 12 that we put up there with a total share of the case. 12 times 4, and then we're going to build a new case here, which is 48. 12 times 4, 48. Now we're going to do 12 times 1, and then divide by his case, or the case of his descendant. 12 times 1 divided by the total share of his descendant's case, which is 6. So how do we got the 6? It's 12 times 1, which is 12, divided by 2, which is 6. We're going to do the same for all the other cases. 12 times 1 divided by 3 equals 4. 12 times 1 divided by 4 equals 3. Now, since we have sorted all the numbers here on top, what we're going to do, we're going to give this individual his share of the case because he's still alive. So we're going to do 12 times 1, and he's getting 12 here. 12 times 1 is 12. So he is sorted. Now, as for the descendant, what we're going to do, we're going to times this. 6 times 1, 6 times 1, and their share is 6 each. And then we're going to do 4 times 1, 4 times 1, 4 times 1, which is 4 each. And then finally, we're going to do 3 times 1, 3 times 1, and 3 times 1, which is all of them are getting 3s. And finally, we can use this total share of the case and divide the wealth here with it. So 24 divided by 48 times each person's his share. So it's going to be 24 divided by 48 times the share of each individual. So each person is getting this amount. The third scenario. The heirs of the second deceased person are the same heirs of the previous deceased, but their amount of entitlement has changed, or they have a new members of heirs inheriting with them. Example: a man died in a traffic accident and left behind a son and a daughter. Before the wealth was divided, the son died and left behind full uncle and the person in the first case. After a while, the daughter died and left behind husband and a daughter and the person in the previous case. The estate is 6,000 dinar. In this example, the man who died in the beginning left behind son and a daughter. So we need to transfer the wealth into the hands of the son and the daughter. So the wealth is divided amongst them. لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ. The ratio 2:1. And before they actually got this wealth, the son died. So his wealth is going to go to his descendant. He left behind the daughter, which was his sister. So that is his full sister. And he left behind full uncle. The wealth now is divided amongst the full sister and full uncle. In the second case, the full sister is getting half of the wealth. She's getting half. And the full uncle is getting the remaining. So the case is built upon 2. And she's getting half of 2. And he's getting the remaining, which is half. So now we look at the deceased person's share of the wealth and his case, or the case of his descendant, or the case of his inheritors. The relationship between these two numbers, you can divide the number by 2 each. 2 divided by 2 and 2 divided by 2. We're going to swap the natija. We're going to swap the results. The results from here will be placed here, and the results from here will be placed here. So acts the opposite. Now we have a 1 here and 1 here. In this case, we're going to times the total share of the first case with a number on top. So 1 times 3 equals 3. This is the new total share of both cases. This is known as Al-Jami'ah. This is known as Al-Jami'ah. Combined cases. We're going to times this. 1 times 1 for the daughter here. Plus she's also inheriting the second case. So we're going to do plus 1 times 1, which is going to get 2 here. As for the full uncle, he's getting only 1 times 1, which is 1. After a while, the daughter died. She left behind the full uncle, because her brother said, "This is my full uncle." She's also saying, "This is my full uncle." She also left behind husband. She left behind husband and a daughter. So the husband is getting quarter, and the daughter is getting half, and the uncle is getting the remaining. So a new case is built, which is from total share of the husband, which is 4. So the husband is going to get 1, a quarter, which is 1. The daughter is getting half, which is 2. and the full uncle is getting the remaining, which is 1. Now we need to combine or do a new jamia. We need to do new jamia, combine cases of this case here, the last case, and the new case. We look at the relationship of the deceased person's share, and we look at the total share of the new case. Here, both numbers can be divided by 2. So we're going to swap the result. 4 divided by 2 equals 2. We're going to put this here. And then 2 divided by 2, we're going to take the result up here. In order to combine the both cases, we will times this together and place it right here. 2 times 3 equals 6. The deceased people will not get anything. Just going to put 0 for them. As for the living people, we are going to look at if they are inheriting from both cases. For the case of the uncle, he's inheriting here, and he's also inheriting in the new case. So we're going to combine both of his share. So we're going to do 2 times 1, which is 2. So plus 1 times 1, which is 3. As for the husband, we're going to do 1 times 1, which is 1. And the daughter, 1 times 2, which is 2. Now we're going to divide the wealth amongst them. We're going to divide the wealth amongst them. 6,000 dinar divided by 6 here, divided by 6. 6,000 divided by 6 times the share of each person. So 6,000 divided by 6 times 3 equals 3,000 for the uncle. 6,000 divided by 6 times 1 is 1,000, and 6,000 divided by 6 times 2 is 2,000. The end.